Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like, because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues and any issues related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. Join the nation by hitting that subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel in a more tangible way, hit the join button, and your membership options for citizenship in the Rabyd Nation will be presented to you. Today I want to begin a new series in deconstruction. I just kind of finished my Romans Road series, so now I want to start a series called Deconstructing Spiritual Disciplines. And this is kind of an overview of how to deconstruct spiritual disciplines. I'm not going to take a deep dive into the various disciplines I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to kind of give an overview, touch each one of them. There's 12 of them I'm going to do, and I'm going to talk about why that is in a few minutes. But I want to look at the various spiritual practices, the various practices that people in religion do, and how they keep you in the faith, even though it's not rational, and learning how they were used basically to keep us believing stuff that isn't rational, and so on and so forth. And I also want to talk about a little bit about how to change them to maybe help us deconstruct. Is there any usefulness in parts of them or all of them if you change the context? And we'll talk about that as well. One of the things about deconstructing, okay, is as you're going through your deconstruction process, you're trying to take apart stuff that you used to believe, but every once in a while you'll find something in that deconstruction that's useful. The thing about lies, the best lies are mostly truth, with that little snuck-in lie in there. Politicians do this all the time. They'll talk about all the facts about the problem, and then they'll offer up what they think is a solution to the problem, which to a lot of people really isn't a solution, and then go around the door and try to do what they want to do. And the thing about religion is there's a lot of truth to a lot of things that religious people say, but they're drawing from humanity, they're drawing from society, they're drawing from cultural norms, and they're not really, the spiritual side of the thing is where the lie is, okay? And so, or they're simply saying something, they're being deceptive in the sense they're spreading information that isn't true. Even if they sincerely believe it, it's still deceptive. Okay, and so when I was a Christian, one of the books that I gravitated to a lot was Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline. I picked up that book in Bible college. I kept a copy of it with me pretty much throughout my entire Christian life after that. Next to the Bible, it was probably one of the books I read the most often. I often referred to it, went back to it, and the reason is because Richard Foster was really about, he was a guy that was about placing yourself in a position so that you could hear from God, you could change yourself to be more like Christ, so on and so forth. And that's kind of where spiritual disciplines are. I think this can branch out into any religion, because a lot of these spiritual disciplines are the hallmark and the bedrock of most religions. They're the things that you do. And Richard Foster divided them up into inner disciplines that were about changing yourself, outward disciplines which were about expressing your faith to others, and then corporate disciplines where we gather together as a body of believers and we do certain things together to kind of build our faith and put ourselves in a position to hear from God, and so on and so forth. Improve your spirituality. And so I gravitated to the idea of placing oneself in a position where God could change you. Now I look at this now, and what I was really doing was placing myself in a better position to hear from myself in order to change myself. Okay, so it has some validity to it. A lot of these things, we're going to see how much validity there is to them. But what religion does is it taps into various things that are natural to human beings, natural to human society, natural to our culture. It's no accident that religions still continue to exist in certain areas of the world in strength, because they're reflective of the culture. It's not an accident that the Middle East is still very Islamic. It's not an accident that in India Hinduism rules, because it's a large part of their culture. It's no accident that Christianity stays in the United States, despite a lot of people's best efforts, because it's part of the culture. And even in Western Europe, you still have a little bit of this stuff. In Africa, the animistic religions still survive, although Christianity and Islam have both made inroads. You look at Latin America, Catholicism is big, Pentecostalism is big, because both of those things are starting to become part of the culture. So my point is this, that what religion does often is draw from the culture. Well, part of that is also personal practice and how we approach, the divine, okay? So Richard Foster divided it into 12 disciplines, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of react to him. Now, I don't have Richard Foster's book anymore, but I look at all of these different than when he would anyway. And so I just kind of learned a lot of things along the way on my own. And now that I've deconstructed, I'm looking at these things and saying, okay, in the early days of my deconstruction, what was I doing with all these things? What was I getting rid of? What things did I keep? Did I think that any of these disciplines had value? Yes, because some of the things that those disciplines connect with are very human. Okay, they don't have anything to do with God or the divine or spiritual yin and yang or any of that crap. What it does have to do with our humanness, and I guess if atheists have a spirituality, it's an understanding of looking at reason and taking control of our emotions. And as a Stoic, that's kind of where I go with this, is like using things that allow me to be responsible for my emotions, be responsible for my life. And I think that's what the spiritual disciplines tap into, but then they add a bunch of stuff that's not necessary. And we want to deconstruct the stuff that's unnecessary, but keep the stuff that actually is beneficial. I think the first discipline I'm going to talk about is meditation, and I want to say that there's some value to it as an atheist. Okay, but all the extra stuff we can get rid of. Okay, so the 12 disciplines I'm going to go over, the inward disciplines are meditation, fasting, prayer, and study. And then more outward disciplines, outward expression, are simplicity, submission, solitude, and service. And then when we get to the corporate stuff, I want to talk about confession, guidance, worship, and celebration. And I want to look at all these disciplines in the context of being an atheist and what religions do with them. And in my particular case, I'll probably talk a lot about Christianity because I'm deconstructing from Christianity and Christianity's worldview and things. But all of these things are things that religions around the world use in order to keep people in the faith. Okay? And what I want to do with this series is I want to show how religions use these things to keep people faithful, keep people thinking in a more spiritual context, even though there really isn't such a thing per se. And I want to also show how they're used to kind of subvert irrationality, show how it causes us to depart from rationality and go into woo, instead of staying rational and realizing that you can use these disciplines and still be very, very rational and not believe in things, I saw a meme today where it was like atheism, we're more skeptical of invisible things than other people. And I think that's getting past the imaginary friends and getting past all this other stuff, but still, basically keeping the meat of spiritual disciplines that tapped into our humanity, but throwing away the bones, okay, that we can't eat and we can't do it. I also want to, of course, look at, with all my deconstruction videos, I want to look at some ways to deconstruct and help us deconstruct from some of this. And, because when you're deconstructing, you're trying to find the things that are still in your life that are still valuable. And even spiritual disciplines have connected to some human value and some human virtue. And I think we can keep those. We just don't need all the spiritual nonsense. We don't need the holy books. We don't need the incense and all this other stuff, unless you like that sort of thing. Live for myself, people give me comments about, Odin and all this other stuff and how I look more like an Odinist pagan than I do an atheist. But I like the symbolism and I like the symmetry, and I've given those symbols different meanings. And I like the stories and I enjoy them just as much as I would enjoy, say, something from Jim Butcher with his Harry Dresden series, okay? I kind of like looking at Odin, and I think he's kind of a cool character too. So it's not so much for me, that there's a spiritual meaning to attach to things. I just like the aesthetic, and I like the way it surrounds me. I think we can do that with a lot of spiritual practices too. And I don't know that it necessarily makes us spiritual as atheists, but I think it allows us to kind of pull away without ripping things open. A lot of deconstruction can be very painful, and I think with spiritual disciplines, this is doubly so. We spent all this time in prayer with our invisible friend, our imaginary friend, and now we're kind of looking at prayer as something that's stupid. But what did prayer tap into, and is there an alternative? Things like that, and so on and so forth. We look at the corporate disciplines. I think we're going to see this even more when we talk about service and confession and guidance and worship and things like that. But my point is to help us as we look at these things from a more rationalistic perspective, from an atheist perspective, that there's no spiritual thing, there's no God to be ingratiating ourselves to. We're not trying to get the attention of any God. We're not trying to improve our spirituality necessarily, our spirituality in the sense that there's some soul that goes to an afterlife. When we take all that away, is there anything left that's valuable to us as we go forward with our life? Because, I can speak from experience. Reconstructing your entire life is very difficult. I've been at it for 8 years, and I am still struggling mightily. Okay, and if there's anything that can be brought over from one house to the next, so to speak, as I talk about deconstruction and reconstruction, then we should do it, because it's one less thing that I have to completely reimagine and rethink about. So we're going to deconstruct the spiritual disciplines. I hope some of you will benefit from this series as we go through various disciplines over the next 12 weeks, and I'll, of course, have a capstone about it. But this ought to take us through a quarter of the year, and we'll be looking at the various disciplines and give us a nice overview. And I hope everybody can enjoy this series that's deconstructing, okay? Because if any advice helps and gives you a little hope, I'm always glad to give it. It's like I've said before, I don't care with my deconstruction, reconstruction videos how many views I get. I'm more interested in those of you that are deconstructing and reconstructing, giving you some hope and giving you some helpful advice. So hang in there with us, and we'll see if this series is helpful. I'm looking forward to myself, because there's still some aspects in my own life that these spiritual disciplines kind of informed, and I still find myself thinking and feeling this way from time to time. And therapy helps, but also talking it out and looking at it is also going to help for me. And so come along for the ride, if nothing else. Thanks once again for stopping by. I appreciate every like, share, and subscribe. Do the things that you YouTuber watchers do. Appreciate every single one of you. Love the nation. You guys are great. As always, live your best life. Don't give yourself to the trappings of religion and faith. Don't spend your time, money, and opportunities on them, because that's a waste of time. But rather give yourself to improving yourself and enriching the lives of people around you, the people that you love and care for, and making a better world. You'll be happier if you do. Trust me, I speak from experience. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.